One of the most common reasons ESG struggles inside organizations is simply where it's been placed. In many businesses, it sits with CSR, and on the surface, that feels logical. Both talk about responsibility, both often face outwards, and both are framed as values-led. But structurally, that placement creates the very problem it's meant to solve. ESG doesn't behave like CSR because it isn't about voluntary action or discretionary programs. It's about what happens when things go wrong. And the moment you look at it that way, it moves firmly into the territory of risk. CSR asks what an organization chooses to contribute. ESG governs what an organization is exposed to. Those are fundamentally different conversations, even if the language sometimes overlaps. When ESG is housed under CSR, it lacks authority by design. It can advise, encourage, and communicate, but it can't escalate. It can't intervene in decision-making, and it can't override incentives that create risk in the first place. Over time, that turns ESG into something that's visible, well-intentioned, and largely powerless. This is why ESG never seems to settle. It seems to drift and float between functions, committees, and initiatives, constantly being renamed or reframed. What's really happening is that ESG is trying to sit where risk is actually governed, but the organization hasn't made space for it there. Risk functions exist for a reason. They're designed to surface uncomfortable information, to challenge assumptions and force trade-offs into the open before they become crises. That's the work ESG ends up doing anyway, whether leadership explicitly recognizes it or not. And that's also why ESG creates friction. It cuts across silos, it exposes gaps between stated values and real operations, and raises issues that don't fit neatly into performance targets. CSR can live alongside those tensions. Risk governance exists to confront them. None of this is a criticism of CSR. CSR plays a very different and important role, but when ESG is treated as an extension of CSR, it becomes performative by accident, not by intent. Exactly how ESG should be positioned, who owns it, how escalation works, and why it so often bypasses neat organizational charts, that's a deeper governance discussion. For now, the correction is simple. ESG doesn't belong with CSR because it isn't about making organizations look responsible. It's about preventing failure across risks that are now materially affecting value. Once you place it with risk, its behavior finally makes sense, and the rest of the design questions stop feeling mysterious. Check out my new YouTube video linked below. The episode isn't about reporting, it isn't about incentives or behavior, it's not sales, it's about getting the framing right, because doing that makes everything else follow cleanly.